issue that frequently comes up is the reaffirmation of an automobile. Now this one's a little bit tricky, and so you have to listen very carefully to what I'm saying. In order to keep an automobile, Congress requires you to file a statement of intention with your bankruptcy schedules. And clients will say to me, well, I didn't intend my car to be in my bankruptcy, or I didn't intend my house to be in my bankruptcy. Well, if it's an asset or a debt, it's included within your bankruptcy. What the client, or what you're really saying to me is, I wanted to keep it, I'm not giving it away. And that I understand. So with the house, what you do is your statement of intentions will say that you're continuing to pay the mortgage. Simply continue to pay the mortgage. That's how you keep a house. Whether it has equity or something in it, that's another issue. But with respect to your statement of intention, you don't sign a reaffirmation agreement. Now with your automobile, while most bankruptcy attorneys say they're going to reaffirm the car, usually we do not. And prior to 2005, the car literally was never reaffirmed, and the client would continue to pay, and it was known as a ride-through. Unfortunately, in 2005, Congress kind of muddied the water, and Congress says that you must attempt to reaffirm the debt if you can afford to do so. And if you don't reaffirm the debt, then the lender can repossess the car. So this is really confusing. So if I don't reaffirm the debt, the lender can't repossess the car, right? That's what Congress says. Will a lender repossess the car if you don't reaffirm the debt? Only Ford Motor Credit has that policy. All other lenders, with the exception of maybe a credit union or two, will allow you just to continue to pay for the car and not reaffirm the debt. And what does reaffirmation mean? Well, reaffirmation means that even though the debt was forgiven in bankruptcy, reaffirmation means we're not going to count the bankruptcy. It's as if you had never filed. And when you reaffirm a debt, it's put back on your credit report, back on your credit score, and if you default on that debt, you will have a deficiency for the repossession of the car. So that's why most bankruptcy attorneys don't reaffirm the debt, because only Ford Motor Credit requires you to do it. And many clients, if they reaffirm the debt, unfortunately, they will to some degree default, or a large percentage may, and then the client years later will come back to me for Chapter 13 because they're being pursued by the automobile lender for a deficiency on an automobile. Having said all of that, what we would like to do is look at your debt to see if your automobile debt, to see if the interest rate is high, to see what the value of the car is relative to the debt on the car, and to look at your financial picture to see if you have disposable income after you file for bankruptcy. I think it is in your best interest to reaffirm a debt if the interest rate is low, if the value of the car and the debt on the car are relatively equal, and if you have disposable income. And that way, when your bankruptcy is over, your reaffirmed debt can be a positive reference on your credit report. So it's only in those instances will I recommend that you reaffirm the debt. Again, I don't do it that often, maybe a couple of times a month do we reaffirm debts. Other times clients just continue to pay. Now, this issue also comes up sometimes. A client will say to me, well, wait a minute. If I didn't reaffirm the debt and the debt's forgiven in bankruptcy, then how come I have to pay for the car at all? And the reason you have to continue to pay for the car is the lender has a lien on your automobile, and that lien exists until the debt is paid. So if you don't pay the debt, even though there's no repo deficiency, the car will be repossessed and you won't have a set of wheels to drive with. Is there another advantage to not reaffirming a car? Well, there is one advantage, and that is because cars have become so expensive today, they're financed over, say, 60 months to 84 months. With the long-term financing, frequently the car depreciates faster than the loan is paid off. So sometimes you have a car, even in the 7th year, once there's still no equity in the car. So in that situation, if you don't reaffirm the debt and you still have no equity in the car, meaning that the debt on the car is more than the car is worth, if say in year 3 or 4 you have a transmission repair that's expensive, say it's a $3,000 repair, then in that case, if you didn't reaffirm the debt, you can simply give the car back to the creditor, and there are no repercussions for giving the car back to the creditor. Because remember, I told you on your credit report, when you filed for bankruptcy, it says forgiven in bankruptcy. So even though you had the car for 3 years, even though you made monthly payments to the creditor, in the 3rd year when the transmission went out, you just give the car back to the creditor. And also I say to clients, another reason not to reaffirm the debt is frequently the car payment's expensive. Say you had poor credit. The interest rate on the car may have been 20%. So a year from filing for bankruptcy, your credit score can go up to as high as 720, and you can get an interest rate on a car for a low interest rate. So what we have to do, though, is get you know, everyone in America needs a car. So what we have to do is to get from one point in time to another point in time, and you need to drive that car, your old car, for maybe a year, and then let it go once your credit score has gotten high, and then go get a new car, a replacement vehicle at a low interest rate. So those are all the strategies concerning automobiles and reaffirmation agreements. I think I've covered everything that you need to know. And again, generally, I don't reaffirm cars except for unique circumstances.